No, if people want to wear a mask, that is okay. These are the things we know to prevent you from speaking moistly. Speaking moistly. Keep 2 meters apart. Speaking moistly. Speaking moistly.
Hey everybody, it is Speaking Moistly. It is Greg Wycliffe here, and of course Mark Paralavis. How are you doing today, Mark?
Wonderful, buddy. Wonderful. It's unbelievably satisfying to watch Justin Trudeau squirm, and he is squirming right now.
And he better be. This is a threat to our democracy. You know, people should be calling him out for treason. I personally think people should be saying all sorts of things. Resign, resign. But
it's funny to me. One of the things that stands out is the fact that nobody is really calling for resignations. They're saying, you know what, we need a public inquiry. And after watching the Rouleau report, who in their right minds would trust these? If you and I were, well, okay, I don't think we'd be even this dishonest. If we had something that we had to investigate, you probably wouldn't appoint your buddy me or anything like that. And I probably wouldn't appoint you unless we had maybe something to hide. We'd want to get to the bottom of it. We'd be like, oh yeah, let's find out what happened. There's Chinese interference in our election. We had no idea. We need to get to the bottom of this. But instead, what's happening is, oh, do you think that we should look into that? It's probably nothing, until the calls got deafening. And then he said, okay, we'll appoint a special rapporteur. What the heck is a special rapporteur?
Yeah, but you bring up a great point. I mean, like the charade is over. It's been over for a while. Let's not play dumb here. There was the SNC Lavalin scandal, and you have, liberals investigating liberals, with the majority of liberals like voting. Like you have more liberals voting, getting to vote on whether it was like, a scandal or not, or whether it was like unethical or not. So yeah, and I totally agree. After that Rouleau commission, it's like, yeah, let's do an inquiry. And like I'm pretty sure it was even the Conservative Party leader, Pierre Poilievre, who's like, yeah, we need an inquiry. It's like, really, dude? Really? We need an inquiry after that whole mess? By the way, why didn't you challenge the conclusion of that inquiry, which basically sets a precedent that peaceful protests are now, you can now crush it with the War Measures Act if you want. What happened there? Where were you on that? To quote Happy Gilmore, where were you on that one, dipshit?
Yeah. Well, I think it's funny as well when people, and I mean, even the leader of the opposition, Pierre Poilievre, coming out and listing the things that he would, need for this inquiry to be legitimate, et cetera, bipartisan selection of the person who's running the inquiry, and so on and so forth. But we saw what happened when Rouleau got put in there. We saw what happened when they being the parliamentarians, MPs, doesn't matter, governing or not, get to investigate themselves. They say,
tell
hey,
the truth?
Would they tell the truth? The guy was the CEO. The first report that came out about this, they said nothing to see here. Didn't you see the report from the guy who was the former CEO of the Trudeau Foundation? It said there's nothing to see here. I think like it was 10 pages and it literally just said nothing to see here. Go away. Stop reading. What are you still reading this report for? There's nothing else to say other than nothing to see here. Right? So it's like they want to take that for face value and say, the public, there's nothing to see here. And they desperately don't want to actually do an actual investigation, probably a criminal investigation. What is it when, if you're like representing a country and then a different country comes in and says, it'd be really cool if you represented this other country and I'm going to give you a whole bunch of money, and don't tell anybody about this though. And then you started representing that country's interests instead of the country that elected you. Is there a word for that? Or is that is that something that's totally new?
I think it's treason, right? Is it not?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think treason. It's
There's
treason
against
then.
that, right?
It's treason then. Yeah. And it's such a mess, because when you started to talk about that, I'm like, wait, are you talking about Ukraine? It's like, oh no, they're China, right? Like there's so many different iterations of this that happen.
It's true, man.
Even Iran, and hey, it's not to say that there isn't significant things happening, but it's always like, guys, what about Canada? Okay, we live. What about, hey, hi. What about Canada? And it's like, there's another aspect to this in the same like bucket, which is American politics. People will follow American politics like it's happening here in Canada. It's like, dude, focus. You live in this one. I know there's other countries out there and other problems, but you live in this one. This one right here. And this one is getting, Chinese communists interfering with the democracy is supposed to mean something. This is usually what Trudeau says, remember?
Yeah.
But so if I'm not mistaken, there's kind of like two sides to this whole, like, we're going to investigate the election interference. And like the one side is you have conservatives and the New Democrats calling for a public inquiry. Hey, let's call for an inquiry. And then the other side is Trudeau. Trudeau's like, I got it. Trudeau's tapping special rapporteur. Whoa, that must be something very, look at that word, dude. And two national security bodies to investigate foreign interference. And didn't he say they were like top secret security bodies or something like that?
The bodies that look at this are bodies that are tasked with looking at it anyway. Like the parliament has a body that looks at election interference, that looks at this stuff, and like anything that would come across its desk that would hit that kind of flag, they would talk about. But it's all done anyway, number one, and number two, it's behind closed doors. It's already they don't have to do anything to make it secret. It's already secret. They don't have to change anything.
The Prime Minister is referring to the issue of foreign election interference back to a top secret committee known as the National Security and Intelligence Committee of Parliamentarians. Yeah. It doesn't make me feel any better. Hey guys, we have a long abbreviation, some top secret organization.
Trust us.
What's funny about the top secret thing, it's like, let's just call it top secret. So when we completely omit everything with a bunch of black ink so you can't read anything, let's just like avoid that whole issue when we look like assholes, when we just kind of like, reveal the documents and it's all blacked out. Let's just call it top secret and release nothing. It is a better strategy, right? Because it's like, guys,
from a
guys,
political point of view, yeah,
we're just stupid peasants. Remember, we can't know about election interference. It's way too complicated. It's way too complex for your little pea brain to understand.
The problem is, like, usually when a government acts this arrogantly, the public backlash is too much for the government to withstand. But Trudeau's a master at taking the lid off the boiling pot and simmering it down a little bit. Like when if the truckers had stayed instead of running away during the Emergencies Act, or if they had not listened to the block captains and brought all their trucks in and refused to leave no matter what, et cetera, et cetera. If it had gone differently, right, than it had, then the political pressure, the public pressure would have been too much for Trudeau to bear. If he couldn't end that crisis, people would have called for his head, and Jagmeet Singh wouldn't have been able to protect him. But that didn't happen, and Trudeau was able to use that crisis to his benefit. He was able to demonize the truckers. He was able to put up a bullshit inquiry through Rouleau, and he's going to use the same playbook now. Like the pot is boiling over a little bit. It's not even boiling over. This isn't even as bad as the truckers. And he's just going to take it off and blow on it, and that's it.
I think you got to stop thinking of it as the Liberals are being the only bad guys, dude. Because I love your analogy. I love your analogy.
He's just acting. He's in power. I don't think Liberals are the only bad guys. There's lots of crazy things that are going on.
But I mean that as in, I love your analogy of taking the lid off of the boiling pot so it doesn't boil over. I feel like that was the Conservative Party a little bit. They were like, hey guys, no, don't worry. We're going to beat Trudeau in the next election. We got this. Just sit back down and, vote for me, Pierre Poilievre. I'll lead the Conservative Party. Fast forward. The trucker convoy was all about the cost of living. Yeah, that's why the convoy happened. Did you see Pierre Poilievre say this?
Yep.
In a press conference? Absolutely gross. But
rewriting history is nothing new. They do that all the time, every single day.
But yeah, and along with that, I feel like we would be remiss to not mention the weakness from especially Pierre Poilievre in this situation. Because, well, to be fair, it was revealed that two Conservative MPs may also have been getting help by the Chinese communists in elections. So essentially, like this country is euchred. You know what I mean? It's like
everybody's implicated.
We're kind of all stuck together. Everybody's got their hands in the Winnie the Pooh jar. It's really sticky and messy, and I don't know, man. I don't think any of these federal parties are our friend at all.
No, I don't. Well, I agree with you there. But sunlight is the best disinfectant, and if you want to use a top secret panel to investigate Chinese interference, then you're going to propagate the secrets, because if the MPs who are talking about the secret Chinese interference can't tell anybody about it, it propagates the secret, and that doesn't help anybody, right? But the thing is, like, you keep saying that.
What do you mean propagate the secret? That doesn't help anybody. What does that mean?
If the people who are investigating the leaks, not the leaks, I want to talk about CSIS investigating the leaks, but if the people who are investigating the Chinese interference are bound by cabinet secrecy, if they're not allowed to tell a reporter what they find, if they're not allowed to have public hearings on it, if they can't compel witnesses or testimony or anything like that, if they're neutered, if they're sitting in a room together and they have 4 liberals, 2 NDP, and 4 CPC, then nothing's going to get done. You see what I'm saying? Like, they say we'd like to have a motion to investigate Chinese interference, and then the NDP says that's pretty racist. You said Chinese, and they don't like to be called that, or whatever, right? Like,
sure,
and nothing would happen. That's what I'm saying. So, so that's what I mean by that, right? Like, it's, but you were saying earlier that there's not just the liberals as the bad guys, and you're not wrong. The calls for CSIS to investigate the leaker. Now, we said that there are laws against if you represent the Canadian government, like if you represent the people, if you're an elected person and you represent an elected group of people, and somebody else came to you and said, I'm going to pay you money, don't tell anybody about this, but now you represent my interests. Wink. There's a word for that, and that's a problem, right? But instead of looking at that and saying, like, well, that's treasonous and we should look at that, as the RCMP maybe should, or the military maybe should, they don't. But instead, what are they going to look at? What CSIS is going to look at? Do you know? They're going to look at the leaker, the person who told everybody that there's a problem, that there's Chinese interference in our elections. They're trying to say these leakers are the problem. The problem is misinformation, disinformation. Our elections are above board. Don't question the elections. What money from China? The problem is the CSIS leakers. Yeah. So, right?
And this is nothing new. RCMP investigating leaks alleging foreign election interference. Yeah, so they're investigating the leaker, not the not the actual problem. And once again, this is the exact same pattern we've seen from this Canadian regime, this Canadian establishment, which is, hey, you want us to be scathingly critical and hold people accountable? We're going to do that of the citizen, of the person with less power. The person with less power is always going to get investigated, is always going to get persecuted. We saw that with the trucker convoy. Where's the money coming from? Who are these people? Let's look into their background. And it's like, why couldn't you do that with so many other scandals? Like what happened with Climate Barbie again? She misplaced like billions of dollars.
$600 million. Yeah, $600 million.
It's like
the Chinese Asian Infrastructure Bank, and then Capital or World Bank. The World Bank.
Were those the projects?
No, different things. But
okay.
All
once again, a bunch of money.
Black holes of money gone.
Yeah, and it's so like it's. It's so much more than just a joke at this point. Like it really is insulting. It's demoralizing. And once again, I know I'm like a broken record these days, but this Conservative Party is playing ball with the same media that is kind of just what's the word? Skimming over. Oh yeah, we're not really going to investigate real corruption within our government. We're actually just going to pick on people like Jeremy McKenzie, Mark Paralovas, and perfect segue, this pastor who's protesting against all ages drag shows happening at a public library, no less.
In Calgary. In Calgary,
yeah.
Well, show the other one first. Do you have the other one first?
I don't know. Do I have the other one?
Maybe. I thought you did. RCMP at the end there. Maybe.
I don't know if I have that.
Let
me check.
It's all right. You can try.
I'll look for it for a second, but.
Okay, well, fundamentally, the pastor was arrested the other day after a police officer showed up at his home in the early hours of the morning to discuss what had happened over the weekend. And what had happened over the weekend was he was bodily thrown out of a drag queen story time at a Calgary library. And they have charged him with hate crimes, with mischief and disrupting the peace or something to that effect. And he's been in jail for, I don't know, a couple of days since then anyway. And I read a report that he was still in jail and he was refusing to sign an agreement, and that was going to keep him in jail. But I also saw a report, yeah, that's the one, refused to sign the release conditions. Oh, but he changed his mind. Okay, so there you go. So that was what I hadn't seen. So there you go, 2:37 in the afternoon. I missed that one. So he changed his mind. He said, sure, I'll do that. And now he's out of jail. So there you go.
Oh, so I got something wrong here then. The rec room, I thought it was at a public library. What?
I thought it was too.
Was this a different
No,
event?
that was a different event. Yeah, that was a different event.
Oh, okay.
That was a different event. They just had a picture. That was stock footage of him. They didn't have footage of him being escorted from the library because the library thing, the police didn't arrive in time for anybody to be there taking images or anything like that. So that was just a different event. You could see he had like a bullhorn and a speaker and stuff in that event. I don't think he had any of that when he was thrown out of the library. That wasn't in the video. But that kind of stuff is chilling if Antifa is allowed to operate with impunity. They can go and protest events and they can threaten people, etc. And regular people, pastors, etc., are being put in jail if they dare to protest a library event. That's pretty interesting. I think that's pretty scary stuff, if you ask me.
No, yeah, that is the most important comparison to make. I think it's getting kicked out of the venue for protesting, like that's probably going to happen. I think that makes sense. Like you're going to have security for your event. Like you don't want some person trying to disrupt your event, even though it's kind of a abhorrent and kind of like very not, I don't know why the hell parents bring their kids to these things, but
I don't know what happened in the room. If like, say I go to a room and like, say somebody's hosting a drag queen story hour and you and I show up and you and I are polite and we don't do anything or say anything. And we sit just to observe. Like say we're going to go and we're going to record it and we're going to talk about it later. We're going to take that hour-long video. We're not going to say a word. We're just going to record what happens. We'll blur people's faces, but we wanted to give them, like, you know what I mean? We're there.
You want to document it. Yeah.
We're not going to say anything. We're not going to do anything right now. We're not going to disrupt this. We're not going to do anything. If somebody came and put their hands on me, that would be a problem for me, right? And so I don't know what's going on in the room. If somebody says you're here to disrupt, and if you say no, I'm not. I'm just here to observe, or I'm just here to silently protest this. Okay. You know what I mean? Like I don't know what happened.
You don't know what he did if he was trying to interrupt the show or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. If two guys decide to attack me and throw me out, I think that those two guys behaved incorrectly. Now, if the pastor himself was behaving in a way that was untoward, not the way you would expect in a library situation, which you don't expect drag queens in a library situation, to be honest with you, but
you really don't.
Like you have to suspend that disbelief a little bit. And I guess you have to behave as if this abhorrent thing isn't happening, and you have to sit there and do your thing. And if he was being disruptive, even then the people in the room should have just left. The people in the room should have left and waited for the police. They shouldn't have taken it upon themselves to throw him out. Right. Because in the same vein, say a group of people are in that room and they decide that the drag queen is the one who needs to be thrown out. And then they do that with those group of people. Right. Is that acceptable? Right. And you would say yes. But fundamentally, like everybody should just leave and call the police and say this thing is happening, because vigilante mobs are not something you want to get into, really. But the police are not upholding our laws. I'm not trying to make the case that drag queens should be allowed in libraries. I'm just using it as an example. The public shouldn't be engaging in policing people's location if you disagree with them being in a public place.
You're speaking to the clip where he was like thrown out by not a police officer, just by like some,
there were just a couple of guys. And do you have security at
a library?
Drag queen library shows? Like, do you have a couple of guys paid for security and they have security license and everything?
Yeah.
It's such a farce.
I don't know. Like and the thing is like, I have friends that are drag performers, and like it has its place. Usually in a seedy gay bar, usually in like, it's like it's more like a burlesque thing. And yeah, like it's like, why are these people so insistent on like putting it with kids? It's like,
it's not even the drag queens.
Drag needs to go together with children, and they make the argument, it's gonna help with the confidence. It's gonna help, and it's like, why are you jumping to drag queens though? Like there has to be something that's a little bit more kid friendly.
Well,
like,
I think that it's super interesting. Like there's a lot of reasons why it's interesting. Drag queens are not traditionally lumped into LGBT groups. You wouldn't say if somebody, Dame Edna, do you know who Dame Edna is? Mrs. Doubtfire, this group of people.
Yeah,
Dame Edna was a British drag queen. right? Like you wouldn't. That's not
that's a little.
sexy.
That's I would say that's the minority of drag though.
Well, but in the 70s it wasn't though. Like in the 70s, 80s, Tootsie. Do you know Tootsie?
No, I don't.
Tootsie was a Dustin Hoffman film and there was another one where I think it was Tom Hanks.
Yeah,
Tom
but
Hanks and
dude,
another guy. No, hold on. I'm trying to get to a point, and I'm not trying to say it's acceptable. I'm just saying it's different. But in 1970s, Tootsie was Dustin Hoffman, and he was trying to get a job, and so he dressed up as a woman to get the job. And then Tom Hanks and another guy wanted an apartment, but it was a woman's only apartment, so they dressed as women, and it was like hijinks that they got up to.
Yeah,
so
and there's a really old movie, Some Like It Hot, with like Jack Lemmon and somebody else that's like from way back, and that's the thing. Like I would argue that is sort of that's more of like an acting thing. That's more of like an in the realm of entertainment. And to be fair, drag it can be very kind of like diverse in terms of the different sort of like performances.
So that's what I was saying. It's not really traditionally LGBT. If you're a drag queen, like
I think I disagree with that part.
No, you don't think? You think so?
I think that. I think there's always been a history of men dressing up like women and women dressing up like men, probably since the beginning of time. Like I think that's always sort of.
I don't disagree with that.
But I think in the modern era, like especially since the 70s, 80s, I would actually just scrap that. Right now, contemporarily, drag is huge. It's mostly a gay thing. Think of RuPaul's Drag Race. Think of drag kids. Think of everything. Everything drag is very gay right now. Sure, there's aspects of drag that is like in comedy. You can see, Flying Circus, Monty Python. They do drag. Kids in the Hall, they do drag. Sure, but predominantly it is because there's a difference too. Like the drag that these people do is kind of like mocking women in a way, whereas the drag that is from the gay community, it's very sexualized by definition.
Sure. So if you had a guy who's dressing up as a woman for Mrs. Doubtfire purposes or Dame Edna purposes that wasn't gay, but was just dressing up as a woman to have a Mrs. Doubtfire television show like Mrs. Doubtfire had. Dame Edna was a talk show host, and Brits found it funny, I guess. My mom thought Dame Edna was hilarious. And I grew up with being exposed to that. And I never thought to myself, well, I thought that's a man. Why would he do that? Like, why doesn't he just dress as a man and do the talk show? Mm-hmm. And my mom said, well, that's part of the joke, right? And same as pantomime. It was just kind of one of those things. But I never associated that with being gay. I wouldn't put that in the LGBT rainbow thing. That's what I'm trying to say. And so for me, it's really a strange thing for drag to be backdoored as this child-friendly thing when you add the gay aspect. I saw a girl yesterday. I used it on my show. I don't know if it was in Canada, but it was a little tot. She was maybe 4, and she did a little dance thing, and then she went around and collected tips like the drag queen was doing, because I don't think anybody knows really what to do with these drag shows. Like, it's just a weird thing to watch. And so without the drag queen being gay, there's elements of drag that aren't really LGBT. But you're right, the modern incarnation of drag shows are very sexualized,
and especially
I just don't think they fit with LGBT.
But we're talking about these modern drag shows that are happening in, at the rec room, at, public libraries, the ones that are like, specifically being where kids are at and where kids attend. These are drag queens from the gay community. And so it's like, the reason why this is a problem is even if they have the best of intentions, it's like these are people that routinely are performing, trying to get gigs in the gay village, at the gay bar. And, they can be very funny. They can be very raunchy. They can be very sexual, like very, 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 very sexual. And it's like, it's entertaining in its own right, but it's like, why are we trying to shove this in with children? Like it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make any sense. And I think I just wanted to touch on something because I haven't made this connection before, because I was seeing there was a clip recently where there was a bunch of, this is somewhere in the States, of course, probably San Francisco, because it was so crazy, but there was a bunch of like toddlers, and there was people like half naked, like hanging, like, a guy in like a Speedo or a G-string and like hanging from the ceiling and like all this weird, almost like kink stuff. And I'm thinking, you know what it could be? Because someone pointed out, where are the dads? A lot of single moms. And you know who single moms probably really love? Drag queens.
Yeah, maybe.
They love
yeah.
like, no, there is definitely a connection there because they
Yeah.
they both hate straight men or whatever. But like
Could be.
there is certainly a relationship there
There's-
between like
yeah.
the angsty sort of single moms who have their kids and like, yeah, we're gonna live our lives and there's
Yeah.
some sort of like it's almost like the some sort of combination of like progressive wokeism. It's like a sort of, I don't know.
It's the perfect intersection. No, you're not wrong.
Something like that.
One of the things I was going to say before is I don't think the drag queens are asking for the library gigs, but they'll take them. You know what I mean? Like they're probably well paid for the library gigs and for the children's. gigs or whatever.
I know for a fact in Toronto, like there is a huge supply of drag queens. There is hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of drag queens who are trying to get gigs. So they're probably seeing, not only is this a gig, this is a new genre of gig.
Yep. Yeah,
oh,
yeah,
wow.
yeah.
We can go into public libraries and get gigs. We can go to here. Okay. I'm going to start calling schools. Hey, you want a drag time story hour? Want a drag time story hour? I'm a drag queen. Look at me. Here's my Instagram. Like I could see that happening.
Yeah,
and it's
for
like,
sure.
although it sucks that they're doing that. And I wish they wouldn't. They're also like hustling. They're grinding. They know
I was
what
gonna
they
say
do.
that-
They want their gig money.
Yeah, it's being encouraged by
the
a whole
fault-
lot of people.
The fault personally, maybe this is controversial. I think it's much more on like the people who are taking care of the kids and the schools who are like, yeah, this is a great idea. Those people.
Well, we've completely lost. We've lost the plot on protecting kids from sexualized behavior, from grooming kids. You can't even say that. You can't do that with a kid around. Like,
that's
there's a kid
almost
here.
like bigoted to say that, right?
Yeah,
To say
yeah.
like, yeah. It's like, how you don't want to teach your kid about butt sex before they even know how to spell? What
Yeah.
is wrong with you, bigot?
Yeah,
And, it's like, why is that more important than
it sounds-
arithmetic?
But it sounds unbelievable the way you're saying it. But it really is that stark. Like it really is. I saw Kronos. I can't remember for Christine. I think it's Christine, and she ran for school board trustee position in the last election. And she shared something from the Hamilton Wentworth District School Board talking about how to be a good ally, LGBTQ, all that kind of stuff in the school, and
Great.
talking about allyship, anti-racism, all this crap. And
Perfect.
And I thought, yeah, I mean, it is a lot of influential time that people spend. And instead of saying 2 + 2 is 4, they're saying, if you're white, you might be responsible for colonialism. And it's like, what?
It's I mean, we can make jokes about it all we want, and because we have to kind of make light of it, but it really is disgusting and horrific. It's like, when you're a kid, this is the small amount of time in your life where you don't have to worry about the world's problems. You don't have to worry about the toxic, divisive, horrible world of politics and the horrible evils and all the things going on in the world. You don't have to worry about that because you're a kid. And these grown-ups, like so many of them, are like, do you know the world's going to end in 10 years? Yeah, you should skip school. Did you know that? And now kids have climate anxiety. And and hey, Timmy, you actually might be a girl. Did you think about that? Oh my God, gender and all that. Like, what the hell are you doing?
Yeah.
Like,
Well,
I honestly want to
thing.
I honestly want to like slap these parents and be like, you are evil. I don't know what the hell you're doing, but you've lost the plot. Like you said,
Parents are afraid of screwing up. Like there are parents who are afraid of their kids to the degree. I think they're weird. In my opinion, they're
I
worried
think
that they're
you're
gonna screw
right.
up. And they're worried they're going to screw up to the degree where they'll let their kids walk all over them. And what kids need is not necessarily a firm hand, because it's not necessarily a firm hand, but I have very high expectations. But you have to be able to communicate that, and you have to be able to help your kids meet those high expectations. But it's very, very difficult to raise a kid in the environment where people are injecting these toxic ideas without any kind of counterbalance. And there really isn't.
You think soon kids are going to be groomed to be government spies like in 1984?
It's already happening. Oh yeah, it's already happening. Are you kidding me?
We're already
Well,
there.
if you're not anti-racist, you're racist, right?
Right.
You understand? And so the schools are already training kids on this. This is already happening, and it drives a wedge between families in exactly the same way in a very similar way. It's not exactly the same, but it rhymes. The Hitler Youth, right? And so there's a wedge driven where kids think that they're so much smarter. It's a subsection of the Superman syndrome. So like you talk to a group of pure-born Germans and you say, you don't want the country taken from you by this group of people, right? You're special. You did these special things. And if this other group comes and is allowed to continue being like what they are, then they'll take the special things that belong to you. And they did exactly the same thing with BIPOC people or black people. Black Lives Matter now. It's the same thing. It's exactly the same map. Only this time it's not Germans and Jews. It's black people versus white people, I guess. But it's everybody else.
Straight people versus gay people, cis people versus trans people.
Well, they invented the cis. Cis is a made up nonsense.
Well, dude, even gender
Distinction.
is oh my God, you've been
That's
destroyed.
not my camera.
Oh my God, what's happening? But
I said the wrong words. The trans lobby is going to get me canceled.
The LGBTQ plus mafia has just hacked our system, hacked
the
our
drag
mainframe.
queens are in.
Oh my goodness,
Holy
what's going
smoke.
on there? That's crazy.
We did not realize the drag queens wielded such power. I actually have to get going, so this might be a good time to just sign off. The drag queens won this time.
Yeah, they win this battle. They
Sorry,
win
you
this
drag
battle.
queens.
But yeah, I know. I was just gonna say before we go, yeah, gender. If you have a grandma who's in her 80s, that is she's older than the word gender. Essentially, the popular use of the word gender. Yeah. So we're back. We're so back. But
take that, drag queens.
But we hacked the mainframe with our toxic masculinity. That's how we
crash and burn.
We got it to fix. But no, yeah, absolutely. Like cis is, of course, it's all a bunch of made up nonsense. And I think it's what's funny about it. I was talking, I think on Plaid Army with Jeremy McKenzie, Derek, and the Ferryman, and I think it was Jeremy who was talking about how there's a necessity for the Daily Wire. There's a necessity for all this alternative news because they're just lying so much in the establishment and the news media. And I made the point. It's almost frustrating because all we do, not all we do, but in a sense, like Daily Wire, it's like, hey guys, no, 2 + 2 actually is 4. It's not 5.
No,
They're saying it's actually just 4. And the frustrating part is can we move on to something? We already know this. We know this already. Do we have to be? It just feels like we're not moving forward. It feels like we're just kind of moving backward. And it's like, the men and women, there's only 2 different sexes. Oh wow, he got owned. Yeah,
I have a whole theory that explains this. So it's blue pill warfare basically. And I'll give you the synopsis. If you in the Matrix. If you're, the blue pill is you go back to sleep and you wake up in the world and you explain it however you want to explain it to yourself. And the red pill is you go with Morpheus and you become Neo, basically. You learn all the secrets. Yeah. So blue pill warfare is essentially anybody who's in the Matrix, anybody who's taken the blue pill, anybody who's closed off to the idea of the battle that's going on, everybody who's just happily going about their day in the Matrix and is not awake, is not on the Nebuchadnezzar with Morpheus, is incapable of affecting change. They cannot be in the battle. They cannot be in the fight. And the goal of the agents in our Matrix is to get people who are red pilled, to get people who are in the Nebuchadnezzar with Morpheus, to engage in blue pill fights. So boys are girls. That's a blue pill fight. You can't you're just going to go round and round in circles. You're never gonna convince the blue pill masses that these people are
so
crazy.
blue pill fights are just fighting with blue pilled people, essentially. Yeah,
round and round, you chase your tail for absolute ever, and it's blue pill warfare. If they can get red pill people, like you and me focused on bullshit like that, then we don't attack the system, right? We attack bullshit, right?
Or
and we think
the individuals who really have no sort of consequence. Yeah. That's really good. I like that analogy a lot.
Yeah,
actually.
we think we're affecting change because we're attacking this idea, and we think the idea is the poison. But really, we're being distracted from the main goal of what we should be doing, which is dismantling their ability to continue this crap.
We've talked about this before, but yeah, in many ways, social media, although we stay informed that way, especially through alternative media, it can really drain your energy, drain your attention, waste your time.
Waste your time.
So
Huge.
beware, folks. Make sure you're consuming responsibly.
Oh, the drag queens are back, buddy. I gotta go.
Yeah. And on that note, make sure you consume more Speaking Moistly. We made it to 1,000 subscribers. Thank you so much for subscribing, everybody. I do this with Mark every Tuesday, and you post other stuff elsewhere as well. Where can they
Buddy,
find
I'm
it?
all over the place. cdnPoli and Locals is where you get full shows, and Rumble and Odyssey and BitChute as well for the rest of them.
As you can see, Mark is a cyborg. He might be a hologram, to be honest.
We're all holograms.
We've met in real life, but I'm not sure if I shook your hand. So maybe.
Yeah, no, I think we did. I don't know.
Maybe it was a robot hand.
Okay, I gotta go, dude.
All right. Thanks for watching, everybody. We will see you next time on Speaking Moistly. Thanks for watching.
Wash our hands, wear a mask. That is the things we know to prevent you from speaking moistly. Speaking moistly. Keep 2 meters apart. Speaking moistly.